This is the rolling pin I use. It's just a short one, but it's made for fondant. It's made of a really shiny, smooth, non-stick plastic, and this really helps. I used to use my wooden rolling pin and it just doesn't have the same effect, and it used to stick a lot. You'll also notice on the ends there are these rubber bands. See if you can see there. That's how thick your icing is going to be. If you leave the rubber band on, that's like a height limiter. So that's really quite thin. I usually use the purple ones, and that's how thick my fondant ends up being, because as you can see it will stop the rolling pin from going any lower, and your icing will be evenly rolled out and to the same depth. The tools and supplies I'm going to be using today are some pre-coloured fondant. You can buy it pre-coloured or you can buy it white and colour it yourself. This is some I had left over from a previous project that I already had coloured blue. You'll need a cutter. I'm going to use this shape. You'll need some cornstarch to dust your surface, your rolling pin, and I'm going to deboss it, or most people call it embossing, and I'm using rubber stamps for that. These are clear stamps, craft stamps that I've stuck onto an acrylic block. I've just made the word enjoy. So that's what I'm going to use to emboss or deboss the fondant today. I'll begin by softening up the fondant, and all you do is knead it. It's kind of like playing with Play-Doh. You want it to get warm and you want it to get soft and pliable, and it becomes slightly more elastic. You can see it's much softer and smoother now. Dust my surface with the cornstarch. I used to use icing sugar, but I'm trying the cornstarch because apparently that works better, so we'll see. Then I kind of flatten it out and I set to rolling it. As you're rolling, you want to lift it every now and again. You see it sticking, so you need to know if you need more cornstarch or icing sugar on your surface. Get some cornstarch on the top, you just rub it off, it's fine. So you'll take your stamp then, you'll dab it in the cornstarch, kind of dab it off. You just want to get it so it's not super sticky. You can even dust some on here deliberately, because that makes your surface not super sticky. Then you'll line up your stamp, use a gentle rocking motion, you'll press the design in, and then you line up your cutter and cut the shape. And there you go, there's your shape. And you'll just keep doing that until your piece of fondant is full of holes. Then you'll lift it up, shake off any excess cornstarch, and you'll just knead it up again. If your fondant starts to dry out and crack and the texture changes, you can literally put your finger in the water and dab a tiny bit of water on just to replace some moisture and knead that through. But it should be fine for a good few uses, especially if you use a small lump to start with. Okay, I'm going to show you how I emboss or deboss a bigger pattern. So we'll roll that out. And for this one I'm using this stamp, which has got quite a big pattern on, so get some cornstarch in there just so it doesn't stick, and dust the surface. Because if the stamp details kind of stick in your fondant, then it starts to tear it when you pull it apart. So we have our surface. Let's make sure it's nicely pressed in there. There you go. And then cut a circle. So if you squeeze it slightly as you pick it up, sometimes it grabs it and lifts it at the same time. But clearly not always. Press that in. With circles I like to spin the cutter, and with other shapes I like to give it a little wiggle just to make sure it's made a clean cut all the way through to the counter without any little bits around the edge. So there's your textured circles. It doesn't matter that it's off center, it's going to have something on top. I'll do one more like that. Sometimes you end up with cornstarch or icing sugar on top of your design that you don't want it there. I just use one of these cheap, really soft paint brushes and I just dust it off. And you can do this after it's dried, or you can do it after you've just done it and it's fresh.